Welcome, welcome to a very, very special Live at 5 event. We are going to have a chance to connect with hospice nurse Julie, who wrote a book called Nothing to Fear that's on sale, I believe, just last week. So people are coming on. I'm excited to see you all, and I hope you've been getting my messages because I've been putting it out there that this is a very special time today. And it's even more special for me because I just enlisted the help of hospice care for my darling husband, Ben. So we're going to be talking more about that in just a few minutes. So, oh, Love Pugs, you're reading her book now. That's super. Hi, Chris. Hello, hello. Hi, Just Hazel. Thank you for coming on. Yeah, I figured that was book not, but yes, thank you. Great to see you all too. I've been, again, so excited about this event. And I just love the fact that everybody has been so supportive as I've been going through some intense times with my dear husband for the past couple of weeks. So, hello from Indiana. Hello, hello. Thank you from Independence, Missouri. Wonderful. Hi, Kathy, Dana, Radicorn. Oh, hi, Jean. So good to see you. So excited. So, how do you know when you're ready for hospice help? That's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. So let me bring Julie on and we're going to get going because I have a feeling this particular live event could go for hours, but we'll try to keep it tight. I've got lots of good questions ready to go for her. So let's bring her on. Hi from Aspen, Colorado, Oklahoma, Ottawa, from Phoenix. Thank you everybody for coming on, and let's bring on hospice nurse Julie. Hold on just a minute while I get my, there she is. Just a minute. So glad to be here. I'm glad to hear you too, Jan. Oh, here she is. We
Hello.
did it.
Hello, everyone.
Julie, my followers know that, I have to channel my inner 15-year-old for the technology piece, because I don't have any kids or grandchildren around to help me out. So I'm like, oh, what am I doing?
Well,
But
you're
we did
doing
it.
great. You are doing great then.
Well,
Because I feel like I do this for someone of a living and I'm still like, what am I doing? So good
well,
job.
thank you. So thanks so much. And again, I've been so excited to talk with you, and timing really couldn't be better because I've been considering hospice care for Ben and going back and forth, and just enlisted them on Friday. So, but I got to tell you, and I know this, unfortunately, the camera won't show it straight on. Everybody, just buy a copy of Julie's book, Nothing to Fear. Just looking at the title sitting on my desk every day, honestly, it's helped me get through the moment to moment experience, of course, of caregiving, not just for dementia, but for many other things.
Yes.
So, um,
Yes.
and as I said, I have a feeling there are so many questions. I know that, and I've gathered a number of questions from our community. So I'm going to try to at least get through all those, and if we can, we'll pick up some more. But we got lots of people coming on, so
Yes.
they already bought the book. So yay,
I
thumbs
know.
up, great,
Thank you.
great job,
And Diane,
everybody.
just
Thank
so you know, just on a side note, chapter 3 is all about hospice, just FYI. And there's an index. So anyone listening, if you're kind of like in the thick of it, like you are, and it's like, of course, it's a book that you could just sit down and read. But if you're also in the thick of it and you're like, I'm not sitting down and reading anything, right? It's a book that you can literally look in the index and be like, I want to know about this. Look it up and it'll tell you what page it's on. And you could just sort of,
you. Yep.
yeah. Yeah, that's like my favorite part of the book. How dorky is
No,
that? I'm like,
no,
is the
no.
index.
It was my favorite part too, because I have to confess, when your publishers reached out, I'm like, I'll try, and I actually did do it just that way. And it was super,
Yeah.
because it seemed like I just got right to the core of some of the questions that I've had.
Yep.
And that's part of what we want to try to share here today live, but you can do it. Get the book, everybody, just buy the book.
Thank you. Thank you.
But let's start there because
Yeah.
obviously, I love the subtitle too, Demystifying Death to Live More Fully. I can guess what inspired you, but I want to hear it from you. What did inspire you to write the book, and what's the main takeaway message that you have for your readers?
With the book and with anything I'm doing on social media, it's to, like the subtitle, demystify death to live more fully. And by that I mean I want to change the way we look at death and dying through education. Unfortunately, we are all going to die.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah,
right,
we've
like
all
we're
had
not getting out of here alive. So, and there's some people that are going to have a diagnosis that they know this is the way I'm going to go most likely,
yeah.
right? And if we can start really getting that concept, I truly feel like it'll help us live better. Like I think people thinking about that or talking about that is makes it worse or makes us more afraid. And generally speaking, what I've seen is people on hospice who are willing to do that and families who are willing to plan and prepare have the opposite effect. They live better and they die better and they have a better experience. And sometimes, now I'm just getting a little long-winded here, but sometimes I know I think of people like you and the patients and the families that I've cared for where it's like they really needed something like this.
Yeah.
So I started on social media, and then because of that, people started being like, not everyone wants to be on social media, right? So they're like, can you write a book? Can there be something else besides your videos? And then that's how it all
That's
unfolded.
how.
And that was 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's amazing how fast things can move. I mean, I'm feeling the same way. I started posting in January and we had this amazing community of followers in 3 months. I'm like, oh my goodness, which also shows the need that is out there. Because
Yep.
certainly, as I said, I know I had the need to share with somebody who understood. And that's part of what I'm already experiencing with some of the wonderful people, the team that is starting to come together around Ben and to help me,
Yeah.
so and let's go right into that though, because again, I did wait for a while because there's a lot of misconceptions out there about hospice care and confusion between hospice and palliative. Let's start with the biggest misconceptions about hospice care, because I know, I'm thinking, well, Ben's actually technically healthy with the exception of this dementia. So I'm hoping he's not going to die in 6 months, So, but what are some of the other myths? Because I know it can seem like we're giving up hope when that's far from the case.
Yes, exactly. So I just feel so when I say this, I mean it with the utmost sincerity, and I think it sounds cheesy, so people think I don't mean it, but I truly believe that hospice is about living. It is a death and dying program technically, but it's about living out the rest of your life. It's about how can you live out the rest of your life with support for you and your family. And specifically something like dementia. So one of the misconceptions is that like you get on hospice and you immediately die. Now that can happen, and
Sure.
it's because people get on hospice too late. They're
Yeah,
not using the full
exactly.
benefit. But with someone like your husband with dementia specifically, or any kind of like terminal, I say
Yeah,
in quotes because people will die from it, but it's a long-term terminal chronic
right.
illness,
They're not in
right?
not
So
in crisis necessarily, right?
right. It's like dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, COPD, CHF, all of those diseases kind of fall in that category where they still can qualify for hospice, but they are the group of people that may come off hospice, come on and off hospice. So there's this
Mm-hmm.
misconception that you necessarily come on hospice and then you have to stay on no matter what and you die soon. And truly, I feel like we should reframe hope. Like when you said giving up hope, I feel like we need to start thinking about like, what does that even mean? Hope for
Yeah,
what,
no,
right? Because the hope of what? Always living? Because that's not a reality,
no, no, no.
So if that's not the reality, I don't necessarily think hope equates to life. I think hope should equate to like quality of life.
Yeah,
We plan for everything in life, weddings, maybe not funerals. Many people don't plan for funerals, but weddings, baby showers, vacations, but we don't plan for like the one thing that's going to happen to all of us.
I know. It's so interesting, and and sometimes I can get a little crazy with the idea of planning. And in my case, it did finally kind of some symptoms Ben was having. I was like, it was technically just back pain, but I thought I'm in over my head, and I was like, wow, I need more help. So even thinking about the fact that if you're even thinking in your mind, I can't do this alone, which I probably think every day,
Yeah.
it's worth at least having somebody come to assess
That's
the situation. Like, right,
yeah.
you don't even have to commit, right? You
No.
you can call up local companies. You can have someone over to assess. You can see if you get a good vibe, the services they offer, and then make the decision, right? And as you said, someone can
Yes.
come on and off too, which might
Yes.
happen,
And you
So,
can, and if you're not happy with your hospice company, again, I'm not really answering the misconceptions. I'm sorry. I just sort of got off on a tangent. But if you're not really happy with a hospice company, you don't have to stay with that hospice company. You can go to a
sure.
different hospice company.
Because they're not all, they're not all made alike. And I would say there's a lot, because it's covered by Medicare, there seemed to be more consistency in hospice care than palliative, which we'll switch to that in just a minute.
Yes.
We're sticking with hospice care. Yeah, a misconception is like you're stuck with it once you sign up. Actually, no. I think the caregiver still has that control, and they can find out what services they offer. It seems like different companies that I talked to all kind of had their thing. They had their little extra they offered, and so it really does have, I think, a balance. It's a balance of what they physically offer tangibly, but also the feeling you get about the whole thing, how fast they called you back, what was the assessment piece like, what did they offer, how did they calm your own fears. So it's something that is worth, I think, a little research and some interviewing, and that to me is a good planning piece that people could do anytime. Even if they don't feel like they're ready, they could start looking into it, because when you want to flip the switch, you want to be ready to go.
Yep.
So how about I know for myself, I fell right into the trap about the sedation myth, because when Ben was having some problems with his back and it was actually causing him to like run through the house and crash into walls, his doctor's like, I think it's time, and I did think, well, what are they going to do for him? They're just going to sedate him. And I already know now that's not the case, but let me have you address the sedation myth,
Yes.
please.
So people think they come on hospice and then they just sedate them. Okay. Or like, so here, just to use your situation as an example. So we do have to, on hospice, our whole goal is to create an environment where they're like clean and safe and comfortable and provide end of life care. And the utmost important thing is comfort. Okay. Then safety, and then other things, but like comfort and safety are big things. And sometimes we come into a house and it's like they're running around terminal agitation or whatever it is, and going to hurt themselves or going to hurt their loved ones, and it's not safe and they're clearly not comfortable. Now, I wasn't there with you and your husband,
Right.
but like you get the picture, right?
Yeah,
There's
I did.
something that's not right, you know. So sometimes if we can't figure out what's quote unquote wrong, like we don't know why it's happening, is it pain? Is it because they're constipated? Is it because they're retaining urine? Like we have to kind of see if there's actually a reason. And if we can't figure out that reason, which sometimes we can't, which is frustrating for families, but sometimes there just is no reason, we do have to medicate, right? So then we medicate so they can be comfortable. And sometimes that means medicating so much that they are sedated,
Right.
because we have to weigh the risk versus benefit.
Sure.
Like if comfort is the most important thing and they're clearly not comfortable, then maybe we do have to medicate until they are comfortable.
Yeah.
But
Well,
the myth is that we stay there. So what we would normally do is medicate someone slowly, so we're not just like knocking them out unless we actually have to for safety reasons, right? And then usually within like a day or so, when that medicine kind of clears their system or gets into their system enough, they usually will wake up and be a little more clear. So it's not just constant. And then sometimes they're
right.
not. And it
Right.
is a place where it's like they're either awake and super agitated and not well, or asleep.
Sure.
And then on
Right.
in that cases, we will err on the side of keeping them asleep. And people see that and think they're just going to sedate them. And that kind of is that's why there's this misconception, because it's not always a misconception. It
Right.
is what's actually happening, but there's a reason for it. And that reason is because which one would you rather have? Someone who is wildly uncomfortable and not okay and not safe, or comfortable and safe? But it's still hard. It's still
Well,
hard for you. It's hard for everybody around. It's not easy, but that is what can happen sometimes.
yeah. And that's, you just described the exact scenario I went through with my husband. Yeah, we had to sedate him with something like Ativan. Then he was up, awake, and even more unsteady. So then we had to ease him out of the sedation with an increase of one of those other drugs. But now again, I'm better able to discern the signs of what was causing the problem which was his back. And that's when
Yes.
it's his back that's causing it. And, once we got that clear, now I can stay ahead of that for his comfort. So hopefully we can avoid that happening again. But unfortunately, yes, we had to go through what I called a mini crisis
Mm-hmm.
before we could sort through all that, And now the thing is that I have hospice on board because if that situation happens again where it gets really bad, I've got help,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
and we know, the steps to take. So I'm I'm deeply grateful. Let's switch a little bit though to talk about the difference between hospice care and palliative care, because that was something that I think the palliative care program is like a newer program from my understanding and works a little differently. So could you maybe distinguish between the two? And obviously my situation is dementia care. I was going to say maybe distinguish between which would be better for dementia care, but then in general, how do you make the decision about which way to go?
With dementia care, it's tough because it's hard. A lot of times it's hard to get qualified on hospice for dementia because you have to be very, very, very end stage. And some hospice companies will kind of be a little more lenient as what they will allow, and some won't. So if you're with a company that won't, you sometimes won't get on to hospice. And in that case, I would do palliative if they let you on too. But so let me explain. So you're right in the sense of hospice is a Medicare guided program. So all hospices technically
Right.
should be created equally. They should be all doing the same things and providing the same things with the same legalities and regulations because Medicare gives them to us. Medicare is our boss. If you are on hospice, the hospice benefit, you get a lot of free because it's from Medicare or your insurance, but they'll get reimbursed by Medicare. Um, if you're not on Medicare yet, they basically provide you with a lump sum of things. Here's what we will give you on hospice. But if you're on hospice, you don't get these things. And these
Right.
things are usually like chemo or radiation, any kind of curative treatment for the disease you're coming onto hospice for. So you're not supposed to go to the hospital anymore. You're supposed to only use your hospice benefit. And you
Yes.
have to have a criteria to be on hospice, which is around less than 6 months to live. So
Yeah.
that's hospice.
Right.
Palliative care will be different depending on what hospital you're working with, which you probably already know. So some hospitals and insurance agencies and like whatever doctor's office you're working with, they might have a palliative care service, and it's going to differ from agency to agency, whatever their criteria is. Some are really open and like kind of anyone can be on palliative care if you have some kind of chronic illness or something that needs managed, like chronic pain or a lot of symptoms from a disease like dementia. And they kind of let everyone on. And if, in that case, like there's no downside, I would just do it. I would always just do palliative care no matter what. There's no downside to it, in my opinion. But sometimes, like the place I work for is really strict on palliative care. We have like super strict criteria on who can be on palliative care. So it's hard for people to get on our palliative care service, whereas another state over, it's really easy. So and palliative is mostly about symptom management and planning for the future and symptom
Yeah.
management. Yeah.
Yes. Right. And that, yes. And what came from me, and we're in Pennsylvania, was
You're
it
in
was kind
Pennsylvania?
of, yeah.
I grew up in Pennsylvania. I'm from Erie.
Aha, New Hope, Pennsylvania. That's where we are,
Yeah.
right on the Jersey border, about an hour north of Philadelphia. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
so no, it's all right. I never forget my stories. uh, so yeah, for Ben, it was going to boil down to a visit from a nurse practitioner once a month,
Yeah.
and it didn't really give me anything that I kind of don't already have, and so and because he doesn't have any other medical problems, I was like, well, I don't know about that. So whereas hospice, is providing all of the supplies because he is incontinent, all of the supplies that I've been buying, his medications, of course, I had our co-insurance covered, but now they'll come through hospice. And I've got a music therapist who's going to come. I have a chaplain that's already scheduled, and I have an aide that's going to come in 4 days a
Oh,
week to help
that's
with
amazing.
his personal care. So she's going to be doing his showers so that I can be more like a wife. Yeah.
Yes.
And so I am really, really grateful, and so it just feels like the difference for me between palliative and hospice care was enormous, you know. And I was about to research some more palliative care companies, and then we had some more, he had some more symptoms with his back. I said, that's it. You know, they had a Jerry chair there for him the next day. I posted a picture on our story of Ben relaxing in his Jerry chair that technically came on Father's Day. It was pretty fun.
That's
So,
so great.
yeah. So to me, it's almost like the bottom line message is get someone to assess from hospice. You can always then decide which way you need to go, you know, and then, and to your point as well, it's to help us calm down so we can live more fully with our loved ones in the moment. Because I know for myself, it's not so much for me about creating new memories with Ben. It's about really being with him in the moment. One of
Yeah.
our followers gave me that wonderful distinction of like, right, that's what I'm doing. It's the present moment.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk a little bit about how families might react, though, to hearing about hospice care and how you would suggest handling that. Because, for instance, Ben actually doesn't have any family and we don't have any children. So, whatever I want to do, whatever I say kind of goes around here. It's Queen Diane, you know, and King Ben. But that's not the case with a lot of families where they hear hospice and have a reaction to maybe whoever the primary caregiver is who's making that decision. Can
Yeah.
you speak a little bit about how it might show up in families when you start talking hospice and there are some conflict that could arise? How does that look and how can you handle it? You know?
So it can be like one, I like to say that like families, all families have some form of dysfunction, usually, right? So just because someone's dying or getting towards the end of the life doesn't mean everyone's going to come together and be like kumbaya. So it, like whatever issues they've had before, it's going to stay like that. If not, maybe even fire it up even more. So in those cases, if someone's already on hospice, or like, you know, there's usually one primary caregiver and then they get all the crap for when they make decisions that the rest of the family's not happy with, which is unfair. Happens a lot. But so in those cases, if the decision has already been made and that family member is getting a lot of heat from the other family, I always ask that we have a family meeting with the social worker, maybe even the social worker and the chaplain, maybe all of us, as much as we all, everyone from the team can be there, so we can talk openly about what's going on and try to help the other family members understand what it means, what hospice means. If they haven't already signed up for hospice, and I do this a lot, where I come in for the hospice admission and one family member's on board and then the other family members are not, or angry, or, and that's the case, I always try to get everyone in the same room, because a lot of times the angry ones will be off huffing and puffing and not want to listen.
Right.
So I always try to get everyone in the same room and just ask them what they would like for their, say it's their mother, what would you like for your mother? Not about hospice, but just end of the day, what would you want? And every time they say, I just want her to be happy and comfortable and get what she needs. Like usually it's always that. It's never
Yeah.
like I want her to live forever, because they
Yeah.
understand that's not possible.
Right.
So when they say that, I say, well, that's amazing, because that is honestly what hospice does. Hospice gets a really bad rap, and then I always give my spiel about it's about living, it's not about dying. If your mom is going to have an end of life journey, which she is, because all of us are, we want her to have the best quality of life, right? And that is honest, that is honestly what we're here for. I'm on your team. I'm not against you. I am for you. I'm for you. And that usually settles them down, you know, because they just don't
Sure.
understand. But if it doesn't, which it doesn't, sometimes I get kicked out of the house. Honestly, that's happened a few times.
Wow. Yeah.
You have to meet people where they're at. I mean, you can't just make someone
No.
accept it. That's their
Sure.
choice, you know.
Sure. Exactly. But I love the idea that you said like to bring the team together, because I like to think again it's a team,
Yeah.
you know, and we're in this together, and have the people from that can describe it more accurately and without all the emotion involved, because it can get tough, you know. So if you're telling, you know, the family members what's going on versus the primary caregiver having to explain, I mean,
Exactly.
you know, I think that's
Yes.
an enormous help. And one, like you said, there's a social worker whose very job and training is to do something like that, you know. So I love that idea. Um, you know, and this kind of goes right in. I think you've already touched on it, but I know in your book you talk about giving up the fighting mentality, because and I saw some comments come through too, in the sense that how do you know somebody's at the end of life, and oh my gosh, if we enlist hospice care, are we again giving up hope? Well, as you said earlier, we are all gonna die, and it's really more about, how do we keep them comfortable, and it's not like you're hastening there.
Yeah, we're not hastening,
No.
right? That's clinically proven, by the way. Clinically,
Yeah.
scientifically proven. Hospice does not hasten death. In specific diagnoses, it's been proven to lengthen life.
Yeah.
Lengthen
I,
life.
I
So,
believe too, because as I said, the more the more comfortable I can keep in. I mean, because stress, we know, kills. I mean,
yeah.
we've had that, the stressed out caregiver and then the stressed out patient. So the more we can decrease that, bring the energy down, smooth things out. I've already experienced it, in the past couple of days, knowing psychologically that I have more help and that I can call somebody day or night. I mean, that's the other piece of it. I don't know if anybody else can agree, but getting through to a doctor these days feels nigh on impossible. I mean,
Yeah.
it's almost like a miracle if I can get through to his neurologist.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's one of the things that I'm actually going to be giving up, because with hospice care, Ben will not be seeing his specialist
Yeah.
because the primary diagnosis for him is dementia and he doesn't have any other diagnoses. So the thing is, though, I will still be able to call and get a nurse to come to the house in an hour, and a medical director that is part of the hospice care team that I can call anytime. And if we need to increase one of his medications or put something else on board, it may not be his neurologist, but it will be someone who can keep him comfortable and safe.
Yes.
And
And we are hospice is experts at managing end of life symptoms to specific diseases. We see people with dementia at the end of life ish, right? And I do say ish because dementia is definitely one of those diseases that it is a gray area. But like we're not neurologists. I'm not a doctor, but like we see it all the
right.
time. We see this all the time. We're experts at managing symptoms. Like that is our whole sole purpose. Um,
So
so yeah,
that's
yes,
why,
go ahead. Sorry, but
yeah, I was going to say that's one of the reasons why, I finally kind of got that clear in my mind, because I I decided against hospice initially. So I'm like, oh, he's not going to be able to take his medications or see his neurologist. But then it's like, no, 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 no. The medications Ben is on are not curative. They are for symptom control. He will continue to take them. They'll be supplied now, actually, just through a different source. And as you said, the symptoms he's being treated for, you see all the time. And when I really thought about it, the last 4 times we saw his neurologist, nothing changed.
right.
He didn't suggest anything different. We weren't all of a sudden putting him on some new drug that was going to turn things around. So that's the other reason I decided, at least in his case. Now, for those who may be listening whose loved one may not necessarily have dementia, but they have other conditions, they can be kind of put on hospice care for like one condition and continue to see specialists for the other one,
That's
correct?
right. Yep.
Can
Yeah.
you give an example of that, for instance? Because
Yeah.
I
So
know,
let's say someone is on hospice for like metastatic cancer, but they also have lung issues and cardiac issues, so heart issues. They would no longer be treating or curing their cancer, but they could still go see their cardiologist and their pulmonologist. If they have rheumatoid arthritis, they could still go see doctors. They could still go into doctor's appointments and get those medications if they need them. So those things are not taken away from you.
yeah, that's great. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I
And
think that's,
many, even hospice companies don't know that. Like so not everybody's even like super equipped in knowing all of the regulations, right? So it's important that you know them so you can say what you can and cannot do. Because sometimes, most of the time, there's someone at the hospice company who understands and knows.
yeah,
But it took me years to really know all the regulations in and
for
out.
sure. Yeah, that's all part of it. I've seen a couple of questions come through around the whole issue of the basics around eating and keeping your loved one hydrated. Um, I actually don't have that experience with Ben. I hope I never do, because his appetite's amazing. But I know it can really be affected, certainly in dementia care and certainly in other conditions. And what's your take on, or from your experience, about like trying to get people to eat and drink when they just don't want to.
I know. Oh, and specifically with dementia, that, that's a thing. People will eventually just not want to eat. So here's my take, and I'm not saying it's easy. This is not easy to do when it's your loved one, but generally speaking, anyone end of life ish, that ish realm of like grayness, right? Always offer, especially offer things they like, that are easy to eat, that they're into, even if it's like ice cream every day, whatever. But always offer all the things, and it's natural and normal for a person towards the end of life to naturally stop wanting to eat and drink. Naturally. And even if, say they stop being able to tell you if they're hungry or if they want something, they will show you physically. They will not open their mouth. They will turn their head away. Eventually, they stop losing the ability to even swallow. But those patients who experience the not being able to swallow, unless it's a sudden stroke where it's like they were fine one day and suddenly they had a stroke and then they can't swallow, that's different. But if it's a gradual thing, their body has already long shut off the mechanism that makes them hungry and thirsty. I think everyone on here who has ever been a caretaker for someone who is at end of life will know that. Just naturally, they will not be hungry and thirsty, and allow the body to be the guide. Truly, I'm talking 10 out of 10 times. Always, always. The more you do that, the better it goes. And if you try to force things, it will always cause issues. Aspiration pneumonia, fluid overload, so just allow the body to be the guide. And you don't have to be the nurse and the doctor. You can always try. And if you're worried and you're like, wait a minute, this seems a little off or something seems funny, you can talk to the nurse and doctor and see, and just ask for reassurance that like what you're doing is okay.
Sure.
And just allow them to be the guide. Offer the things. If they can do it and they want it, great. If they don't, allow the body to naturally do what it's doing, because the body knows what's going on biologically.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. I mean, I find that with Ben too. I mean, again, thankfully he drinks a lot of water, and then somebody was like, "Oh, don't, you got to make sure that he doesn't drink too much water, and that's going to mess up his electrolytes." I'm like, "Wait, I think he gets enough salt in his food.
Yeah, no.
I think I'm worried about that."
No. No, don't worry about any of that. I always say go by how they look. Go by how they look. Like when he's super agitated, we gotta take care of that, right? But if he
Right.
is just, it's still like, if he's sleeping more and eating and drinking less, if he is clean, safe, and comfortable, those things are okay, because those things are normal.
Yeah.
Sleeping a lot, eating and drinking less. So that's what I always go back to. Are they clean? Are they safe? Are they comfortable? And if you can say yes, then you can like take a deep breath and go drink a coffee or something,
Yeah.
right? Like you can allow things to be. But it's hard to remember that.
Sure. No, I mean, listen, I had to write it down. I mean, my first primary was always like safe. Is he safe? When it first started happening, that was my primary thing, and then I think, you know, clean and comfortable came down the line if he was safe, and and now, as I said, I've gotten some things handled, so of course the clean and comfortable is just so important. Can you I was just kind of looking at some of the other things, other comments that had come in. How do you see the future of hospice care perhaps evolving, because there are so many baby boomers like myself, and the needs are huge. And maybe you could even speak to, hospice care in a facility versus at home.
Yeah.
So, yeah, give me your thoughts on that.
Well, I think we need so much more help in hospice. Someone just asked me yesterday, like, if you had a magic wand, what would you change in healthcare in general, which there's too many to name, but in hospice specifically, what I would change is I believe everyone should have a 24-hour caregiver. Maybe not one person, because that'd be too hard, but I wish hospice gave that to families, so you can fully be the wife and you're not the everyday, because they come in, CNAs come in and the nurse comes in, but like not enough. I mean, yes, but also you're still there 24 hours a day, right? That's so difficult. So I wish they would provide more care, like custodial care, they call it, someone just being there to like take care of all the things. I hope they do something like that. I don't know if they ever will, but generally speaking, I think we just need more help in healthcare. More help, more money, more help, more money. And Hopefully we start seeing that. I think that people who don't think that they can handle the 24-hour care it takes to care for someone at home should think and start planning to either be in a nursing home, like their loved one be in a nursing home, or their loved one look into like a hospice home. So like I live and work in California. I'm sorry, Los Angeles. California is huge. But like in Los Angeles, I don't feel like we have like hospice homes. We have like boarding cares that are like nicer than nursing homes. There's like a house with like maybe 10 residents and they can be cared for in there, but it costs a lot of money. It costs a
Yeah.
lot of money. And I'm telling you, anyone listening to this, it's just expensive. Like they're not doing something wrong. You didn't do something wrong. We have just a missing link in our healthcare that doesn't help the poor and doesn't help the dying, like the poor and dying. Like you have to have a lot of money to do things to make it feel like this is enough. And most people don't have those resources, which is really sad. I mean, it's grim. I hate to give that grim message, but like that's the truth. They're not doing something wrong. There's just not things out there.
Yeah, no, it's been a daunting experience, and part of my desire through certainly my page, and I'm sure with yours, is to raise awareness. And I'm not sure if I'll ever get to do a TED talk and it's directed to the government. But it's like we need help. I mean, you hear things because we have followers from other countries, which of course I'm so grateful for. But it sounds like they've got this worked out a little better than the United States does in some places. And so we want to learn from them. And at the time, as I said, one of the things that I didn't realize though is that you could have hospice care if your loved one is in a facility, because that would give extra care in a facility that might not also be doing the 24/7 that the individual needs. So just because they're in a facility doesn't mean that you can't bring in a hospice care company, correct?
Correct.
So,
correct. Yep.
I mean, so we're gonna somehow figure this out and find ways around, so much of the issues that we face, and that's part of what I love about this community, because together we seem to come up with good ideas, and that's what I keep saying, one moment at a time. One last question, because I know we're kind of getting to that 40-minute mark, and I so appreciate this. How about for caregivers who are in rural or underserved areas? Any suggestions or that you can give them in terms of how they can ensure they've got access to hospice quality care?
Hospice quality care. Oh, it's not easy. I don't want to act like I have all the answers. I wish I could just give there's not always easy answers. So my thing would be, if you're in a rural area and you have one hospice company and that's the only place that you have, you can be in there not giving you what you need. You can be a thorn in their side, right? Like I don't want you to be, but always advocate for yourself and for your loved one. And if you're not getting what you need, then you need to keep advocating. I also think we live in a world, unfortunately, where we have been taught I think generationally, to not ask for help, or to not like asking for help, or to be afraid, or like, I know when I feel bad or I feel overwhelmed, my first inkling is not like, I better ask someone to help me. I'm like, I need to go away more. And like,
I call it dysfunctionally independent.
yes. Like I'll like, or like, even though I need the help, I don't want the help, or I don't know what it is, but I'm even like that. And I know better. I know better. So when I say this, I'm saying it to myself too. This is a all hands on deck kind of time, and all hands on deck. And I do believe there are good people and good communities in every community that if you ask for help, they will help you. As uncomfortable as that feels, as scary as that feels, there are resources. They're probably few and far between, especially in rural areas, but rural areas also carry a lot of community essence, like churches and church. And sometimes the social worker at the hospice company will say, I know of this group that does X, Y, and Z. And it's like, that's the kind of thing we have to do. And it's just hard. It's just hard. But I really tell people,
ask. And thank you, because I think this is a wonderful way to even kind of wrap this up. is ask and you shall receive. I mean, now that's something that, from a spiritual perspective, I have found um, that it actually works. What we seek, we will find. If we can go into it with a mindset that we're not alone, no matter what your connection is with your creator, you're not alone. There's help out there. If we can go into it with that mindset and say, I'm going to find it, gosh darn it, I'm going to find help for myself, I'm going to find help for my loved one, and make it your intention, it's there. And I say one of the best ways to plan is to start to build a network now, whether it's
Yeah.
your neighbors, whether find out what the companies are out there, get palliative care going if you need to, research the hospice care companies, start to ask at the church, look for the different local support groups, that we all have connections. So the more we connect, the more we can find what we're looking for.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I,
Yes. Yes.
do you have a last message or anything? Again, nothing to fear. On sale now through Amazon.
On
Look
sale
at
now.
on sale now. Hospice nurse Julie McFadden. Any final words
Well, I was just
or
going to say my final thing when you were talking about, if you're in a rural area or just if you're having a hard time finding help, I do feel like we can start healing and start learning in community. And if we can't do it in real life because it is harder to find or you don't have the time, this is why I love stuff like this, Diane, is that like I really feel like I have a community of people that like come to I go live at 5 like you every Wednesday on YouTube, and the community there is free. So many of the same people show up.
yes,
Everyone's talking in the chat, and there's something about that even if they're not giving you tangible help in your house, right,
yeah, no,
it
this
still feels like you're not alone.
they're
And
not. I mean, it's
yeah,
amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm a
yeah.
big
And like I need that all the time, especially if I'm feeling bad. Like I said, when I'm feeling bad, I feel like I better be alone and like isolate more. When really what I need is to not
connect.
do that. I need to connect. I
Yeah,
need to connect. And I think generally speaking, not even in the end of life realm, just in life,
yes,
we need more of that.
we do. And
So online can be a good way if you can't find it.
if you can't find it tangibly, like you said,
Yeah.
in person, hey, listen, I mean, that's exactly what happened to me. I never knew what amazing support. I have to confess, I was a little judgmental about social
Yeah.
media because I had never even posted on Facebook in 20 years. And now this amazing community of followers, and as do you, right? So we thank you, all of our followers who
Thank
have been
you.
so supportive, and the fact that how much encouragement and love is exchanged between them as well. So I'm just deeply grateful for this time with you, Julie. Thank you so very much. And I intend to be following you now that I know your health
Right.
center.
Right? Yeah.
I trust some more people will come our way too and share the journey
Yeah.
together. So
Thank you for all you're doing, especially with your husband. It's one of the greatest acts of love I think anyone can do. And it's the most moving part of my job, seeing like love in action like that. So I appreciate you.
thank you. Thank you so much. The group has seen me cry before, so I'm also, I can get those tears
I'm a
sometimes.
crier too, girl. I'm a crier too.
All right, God bless you. We'll bring you back. And yes, by the way, this has been recorded, everybody, so you can watch as many times and pick up all the great tips from Julie. But get her book, Nothing to Fear.
Thank
Even if
you.
all you can do is read the cover, there's an index. There's lots of great stuff.
You're so great. Thank you so much.
Thanks again. All right, we love you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.